It's always amazing to me to be introduced by the greatest governor in the history of our state. No question about it, hands down. And also to sit with and to hear from the second greatest First Lady in the history of our state, Carolyn Hunt. My wife, Kristen, wishes she could be here, but we are doing a tag team match all over North Carolina. She has been done events in 76 counties so far, and she will have completed 100 by our first term and gone back to several times. So she sends her regard. And I'm glad to be here with Representative Craig Horn, who has cared about education so deeply for many years. MC Pylon and others with the Belk Endowment have done so much. Leslie Boney, Jack Cecil, so grateful for your leadership. I have with me today my Deputy Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Kevin Monroe. Many of you know he's based here in Charlotte, does such a great job for us. And to have so many people from all across North Carolina come from our private sector, from governmental sector, both state and local, to have people from the communities of faith who are here and do so much to help us in so many areas, and our nonprofits. Thank you for being here and being a part of this amazing effort to make sure that we have the kind of workforce that we need to help make come true my CEO mission statement for North Carolina. And it is simply this: I want a North Carolina where people are better educated, where they're healthier, where they have more money in their pockets, and they have opportunities to live lives of purpose and abundance. That is my mission statement. And what we're talking about today helps get us there. In this fast-changing economy and job market where we find ourselves, it's exciting and frightening at the same time, particularly for adults who have done one or two things all of their lives and then all of a sudden find a turbulent job market and jobs being eliminated that they knew how to do. Smart, hard-working North Carolinians who want to contribute, who need to contribute to support their family. What can we do to help them to be able to fulfill these jobs that we know are out there? Always, when I talk about education, is the fact that we must invest in education from cradle to career. We know the importance of quality early childhood education, and we must continue efforts like Smart Start and our 4- and 5-star child care centers that provide wonderful education for our young kids. The science, the data is overwhelming about how important those first few years are. Expanding our pre-K options, investing in our public schools, making sure we have the very best and brightest teachers and principals leading the way. I was with a group of Democratic and Republican legislators a few months ago. We talked about some differences of opinions on private school vouchers and slapping letter grades on schools and how we ought to approach education. But one thing we agreed on, that a good teacher in every classroom and a good principal in every school gets us a long way toward improving public education and making it the best that it can be. So we must make sure we attract and retain the very best. We've lost two of our most important sets of recruiters for educators these days. We have lost, number one, our teachers themselves. Not many teachers these days are telling kids to go into education. And number two, we've lost a lot of our parents. Many of our parents aren't encouraging their kids to go into education anymore. So what we have to do is to lift the level of respect and try to re-engage those two recruiters, and sending a message from the state government that we believe that educator pay should be significantly increased, that we plan to do that we want to greatly expand teaching fellow scholarships to tell our young people that if you'll give us 4 years at least of teaching in our public schools, that we're going to give you 4 years of your education. And with the cost of education during these times, that's a big deal. And it helps us to lift the level of respect. So even before we talk about this issue of adult education, we have to make sure that we're continuing our effort every single day, education from cradle to career. You also notice that I put in my CEO mission statement that we have a healthier North Carolina. I was at one of these child care centers and was talking to one of these early childhood educators. Talk about committed people. Many of them have master's degree, and we know what they make, less than school teachers, because these child care agencies have to make sure that their fees are competitive so that parents can afford to leave their children there. And many of them do not provide private health insurance for their early childhood educators. And I was sitting beside one teacher as we had roundtables across the state, and tears were running down her cheeks that she had gotten sick. She didn't have health insurance. She had rolled the dice, and now she was going to have to declare bankruptcy. I started talking with her about this. She fell in that gap of making too much to qualify for Medicaid, but not enough to qualify for the federal subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. She falls in that sweet spot that we could help to close by expanding Medicaid in North Carolina. What we are talking about here are the working people, working adults, 500,000 to 600,000 of them that could be covered with health insurance if we would just say yes. And it matters a great deal to this topic we're discussing today, because there are many small businesses across North Carolina that can't afford to provide health insurance for their employees. And other places where people work of jobs that we need performed don't have health insurance. So I think it's the right thing to do. By the way, it's happening in 37 other states. We have the chance to bring billions of dollars per year down to North Carolina. They pay 90% of it, and we have got the other 10% covered by insurance companies and hospitals. So we're not talking about a hit on the state budget. And we create 30,000 to 40,000 new jobs from experiences we have seen in other states. We help us fight the opioid epidemic that's out there. It's happened in blue states and red states. Mike Pence in Indiana, when he was governor, expanded Medicaid. I was talking to Governor John Kasich, the former Republican governor of Ohio, and after I won the debate about which state was first in flight, I mean, they had the bicycle shop, we flew the plane, case closed. But he said, thank God we expanded Medicaid. And he cited for me a 54% decrease in opioid overdose deaths in the city of Dayton. Because when you provide for more coverage, you attract more providers. In substance use disorder, you talk to any judge, you talk to anybody in the system of how difficult it is to get mental health for people, particularly who don't have insurance. Now, we have a lot of private employers here. And do you know that in states that have expanded Medicaid, that private businesses have seen an average of 7 to 11% decrease in their health insurance premiums? You know why? Because you're reducing the amount of uncompensated care that all of us end up paying for. because people, when they get sick and they don't have insurance, go to the most expensive place they can possibly go, the emergency room. And so this is a win, 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 win across the board. If you want to see how many people would get health insurance in your county, if you want to see how many jobs that would be created in your county, if you want to see the amount of economic investment that would be predicted in your county, and remember we have many states to verify this data, go to healthcarecan'twait.org. healthcarecan'twait.org. Punch in your county, you'll see what's the positive things that would happen there. And we need chambers of commerce, we need business people, we need county commissioners to say to the General Assembly that we need to do this. Even in Graham County, one of the reddest counties, there was a letter to the General Assembly saying, we've got working people here working for people who can't afford to give them health insurance. We've got a 30% poverty rate. This would be a big deal for our county. If people aren't healthy, they're not going to be good in the workforce. So when you're going back to your home towns and counties, talk about how important it is for us to get health care to working people in North Carolina who need it. It would be a godsend for them. It's the right thing to do. It would help the economy of our state and will help our private businesses. But when we're trying to retool a healthy adult workforce, you think of the question that CEOs ask. Now, I'm out there recruiting companies as hard as I can to come to our state, to expand in our state. I'm sending a message to them that North Carolina is open for business, that we value diversity and inclusiveness, that we have the quality of life for you to come and bring your family and raise your family and have some of the best employees in the workforce anywhere in the world. And CEOs are responding. Last year, we had record numbers of announcement of new jobs. This year, we even are ahead of that pace. We really have turned on the spigot. And the thing I hear most from CEOs now is, do you have the people who can perform the jobs that I create? I'm not hearing from them about cutting more corporate taxes. What I am hearing from them is, we need talented people. Can you help us make sure that we have the people? Here's what we're doing right now, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about some things that I want to do. We've set up what we call NC Job Ready. Our NC Works Board has built NC Job Ready around three core principles. First, skills and education attainment. We know we've got to find ways to get for people to get the skills and the education that they need. Second, employer input and leadership. Employers know more than any of us the kind of skills that they need for particular jobs. And it's important for them to report to us and our educational institutions about what they need. So we want more involvement from the people who are creating these jobs and know what they need. And the third core principle is local innovation. Rural North Carolina may have a different idea about developing workforce than urban North Carolina. And we are rewarding and encouraging local innovation. One of the cases that I think has been so successful in Catawba County, we saw a lot of furniture manufacturing leave the state over a period of years. But we developed a niche industry of high-end furniture which required advanced manufacturing skills. So we needed a way to retrain and retool people who had been working at other jobs in how they could be a part of advanced manufacturing and higher-end furniture. And all of the employers got together with the community college to form what they called the Furniture Academy. And they had classes at night staffed by workers who were already in these advanced manufacturing jobs. And so they would go to class at night and learn about furniture manufacturing. There's Senator Waddell right there. I didn't know you were here. I'm glad you're here, Senator. Thank you for being here. They were able to go to get the training that they needed at the Furniture Academy. And first couple of years, I'm not sure what the latest information is, but they all got jobs because they were able to get this specialized training. And that's the kind of local innovation and cooperation that we need, that we can work through our great community colleges. Our Workforce Development Board is also coordinating this, and we are working to increase work-based learning. A lot of times in the olden days, as I say, people had apprentices and people who learned on the job, and we sort of went away from that for a number of years. Well, it's coming back now, and it's coming back strong. Apprenticeships, internships, not only help these employers, but they help the employees to get good-paying jobs, and we're encouraging that. We have set up a local innovation fund for creative local workforce development projects that are coordinated in local areas, trying to continue to foster that local innovation. And specifically in eastern North Carolina, we have started what we call Ramp East, where there's a 10-county adult training initiative partnership with the community college. We have done so well in recruiting advanced manufacturing to eastern North Carolina that everybody's beginning to scratch their heads and say, we got to make sure we've got the people who are trained to fill all of these jobs. It's an exciting problem to have, but it is a challenge nonetheless to make sure that we get the kind of training that we need. So we need to make sure that these community colleges are working closely with these new businesses that we are recruiting, and we're hoping that Ramp East can provide that coordination that we need to provide the training for these new advanced manufacturing jobs. Triangle Tire and Corning, both big project developments in eastern North Carolina that we want to see being successful. I know earlier that Community College President Peter Hans talked to you a little bit about finish line grants, and I saw someone here earlier today from Western Carolina University, and I told him that this was how I got the idea of a finish line grant. I was talking to a faculty member from Western Carolina, and he said there was a student who had been doing very well. She worked, and she commuted from Western Carolina to her home, to her workplace. And she was about to finish. I think she had one more semester. And she called and said, I cannot afford the tuition and fees for this last semester because I've got a $2,000 car repair bill. I just don't have the money. You all who work with everyday people know they live life on the edge often. And a big car repair bill or an emergency expense can be overwhelming. What the faculty at Western Carolina University did was chipped in and created a fund to pay for her car repair bill. She was able to pay her tuition and fees and to finish. What a great idea. So we set up finish line grants. We proposed it to the legislature, but it didn't make it into the budget. But we were able to find some federal money that we designated for finish line grants. Because of the way the funding was coordinated, we could only do it at community colleges and not our universities, and I hope that this is something that the General Assembly will consider in the future. But we have provided help to 2,300 students thus far. And you... Those of you who work in community colleges know the stories that there is a child care emergency, a major medical bill, something that will get in the way of somebody completing a degree. And I've been able to go around and meet with people at the community colleges and talk to some of these students, and it's not a lot of money, but it made such a big difference in their lives. And I feel almost guilty hearing the gratitude from these students about how I wouldn't have been able to finish or I wouldn't have been able to stay in but for this finish line grant. One little bit of help making a big difference. I happen to think that a car repair shouldn't affect your future. And we need to make sure that we continue with these finish line grants and actually make them more robust. In fact, I was in Silva, North Carolina. I think some folks from Jackson County are here, but I was at Southwest Community College and met with several of the students there and heard amazing stories about them. And at that community college, they have had 97% of the people who have gotten finish line grants have either finished their degree or credential or are still in school working toward it. And that's a pretty good track record. The third area I want to talk about with adult workforce is reentry from our prison system. I happen to believe deeply that people can be redeemed. I know that my church back home has been very involved with starting Step Up Ministries there in Wake County, and more of them have sprung up across our state. And I have activated a very active statewide reentry council, and we have worked closely with a lot of local reentry councils that have been set up across the state. And one thing I know, when someone is out of prison, I think it's a moral obligation for us to try to help that person to be able to get back, reintegrate into society. And it is amazing the obstacles many of them face. Start right off as where are you going to live? Where are you going to work? Sometimes there are people who often come out with owing child support payments. You want to help them to be able to make that up. Sometimes they come out with called and failed warrants for arrest because they couldn't show up in court for a speeding ticket or whatever because they were in prison and couldn't get there. We see people who need services for transportation. They may still have substance use disorder issues. So there are a myriad of issues that can be involved with someone coming out of prison. But I'll tell you this, a lot of them want to be doing something different than when they were going in. And even if you don't believe in the morality of it, and even if you don't think we should be helping them because people ought to make it on their own, think about, do you really want them to go back to doing what they were doing before they got out of prison? I mean, do we want safe communities or not? And 95% of the people who go into prison eventually will get out again and will be back in the community after they have served their sentences. This is an amazing opportunity for adult workforce. And we need to continue to coordinate the effort to help get people back into our society. We have people who are working with our Department of Commerce and some of our Department of Commerce people who are here, and we educate employers about all of the benefits and the things that they have to watch for if they're willing to step up and employ some people who are coming out. And they have been, a lot of these employers just really didn't realize this, and so many of them have gotten into it. One manager that we had a luncheon of employers, she learned about it, and went out and said at the next luncheon they did, she'd already hired 3 people who had re-entered into the workforce. So we know there's some things we can do more to help encourage people to do this. We're working on trying to clear up records with people. Some positive bipartisan legislation has passed on that. Obviously, there are certain jobs that some people who are getting out of prison can't have or should not have. But I think for the most part, this is something that we need to continue. When we're thinking about workforce, we cannot forget this population of people. Fourth, North Carolina is the most military-friendly state in the country. We have amazing veterans who are making decisions to leave the military. A great place to get people for our workforce. Right now, our NC Works Commission that is helping us with NC Job Ready, they provided over 10,000 veterans over the past year with job seeker services, helping them know about information. Our Department of Commerce has outreach specialists, many of them who are veterans themselves, and they have contacts with 11,000 businesses. And we also have a veterans portal wherein it incorporates all of the military occupation codes, so they will know what they did in the military, and it will do a job search for them based on those military occupation codes to help them find work in the workforce. And in addition, we work with the North Carolina for Military Employment, NC4Me. They host hiring events and invite vets to come, employers come. Last year we had about 600 vets come to on-site meetings with over 200 employers, and on-site, 50% of them either came back, were offered a second interview, or were offered a job on the spot. So just connecting those people can be critical. Now, I know that you have talked about My Future NC, this goal that we have come together to have 2 million more adults with post-secondary degrees or credentials in the next decade. That is mind-boggling to think about. It is a significant challenge, but I think it's been unprecedented how we've all come together on this. Businesses, our educational institutions, the legislature, the governor's office, Republicans and Democrats, we all came to a big announcement about this goal, and a lot of work was put into finding a realistic goal and how we could measure ourselves toward that goal. So now that we have the goal, we got to figure out how we're going to get there. And it's not going to happen by itself. There's going to require significant hard work, coordination, and input. And I want to throw out something to you. I know you're looking at Tennessee and things that they are doing with community college, and the cost of education these days is a factor for people, and the amount of higher education debt is continuing to mount, and it's a big issue for people. Yes, and some people and parents, I'm sure, are familiar with all of that. So we started looking at this, how can we be targeted with our dollars, and what could we do that is creative? I put in my budget last time a proposal that we call NC Grow, Getting Ready for Opportunities in the Workforce. And it does provide for community college tuition and fees. Now, we could say we want to do it across the board, and I think that that's a good idea. But we know the environment we're working in, and we know that we have to be targeted about what we do. So this proposal says that we're going to provide these scholarships, tuition and fees, for high-demand, higher-wage jobs. These jobs that the CEOs are telling us right now are wide open, and they just need the people to fill them. So why don't we, for the businesses and for the people who would get this job, who need the retooling, say, okay, if you're willing to come into this field where we know we need a lot of people, we'll pay for your education to get that done. That makes sense. We also proposed a way to pay for it. Right now, we have a $3.7 billion unemployment insurance trust fund, and we've got some issues we need to work through for unemployment insurance. But we've come up with a proposal on how to leverage the interest on this trust fund. It's a little complicated. I'm not going to get into it right now, but we have a way to do it that could, in my budget, we proposed $45 million to do this. And it would seem to me that if we all have agreed that this is an important goal, we know we've got to find a way for them to get that credential, to get that degree past their secondary education in order for them to get the jobs. One thing that I appreciate very much is what you're doing here at the Emerging Issues Forum. Governor Hunt, as you know, is nonstop. To this day, he is nonstop. And I just want you to think what it was like for me to be his senator, okay? With the phone calls and the ideas, he never stops. And I'll tell you why he never stops, because he cares so deeply in his heart about this. And the Emerging Issues Forum is a place where we can hash out these policy issues and talk them through and have all kinds of viewpoint, and we can go and try to implement them with the help. And I'm going to have my staff be briefed on what has happened here today, and hopefully that we can work on some of these ideas to get us toward the goal that we need to be. I know that the challenges are great, but I am so optimistic about the future of our state. I believe in our people. I believe in our history of caring for education. Our Constitution requires that every child have access to a sound basic education. We were the first state in this country to open our doors to higher education supported by the public. We believe in education, and we know that education is the key to attacking this issue of making sure that our adult workforce has the skills and the education that they need to succeed in life. I'm so grateful for having been with you here today. I look forward to great action in the future. Let's all get to work. Thanks very much.